we're going to have a look at a little kit here that was re-released just recently, but I've been waiting for a long time to get my hands on this kit. I'm going to show the re-release of this kit in the box. That's what we're going to focus on here, but I do have one from years ago. Somebody else built this and I've just kept it over the years, so we'll have a look at what one looked like. Actually, it was like a vintage build back in the day. It's not somebody who just did one up recently or anything, so we'll have a look at that at the end of the video. But for now, we're going to have a look and see what you actually get in the box here. This is the Atlantis models Lockheed AH-56A Cheyenne helicopter, and we can have a look at our box art here, and it's telling us about our detailed cockpit and movable minigun and our pilot and gunner figures and everything. And this is in 1/72nd scale, which makes this thing really nice. And this is a perfectly buildable kit. It's very old. It's an original Aurora, I believe it's Aurora mold, and it actually, I think, is still buildable today, and it's actually in a scale. And as far as I know now, I don't know if anybody's looked up plans and put this thing against plans to make sure it is exactly 1/72nd scale, but as far as I can see, it looks to actually be in scale, because those Aurora kits, and sometimes they'll be in like 1/28th scale, or like one like 82nd or 1/85th scale, like really weird scales. But this one is actually done in our standard 1/72nd scale, and it's made in USA too, these kits, which is quite impressive, because the quality of these Atlantis kits to me is, considering that they're very old, fine, but the products they put out are excellent. I have no complaints about them. It's not like the Lindbergh kits of old. Like, these are pretty decent. And anyways, you can see on here we've got a skill level 3 on there, and we've got a write-up of the history of the Cheyenne and all of our basic specifications on here, and then we've got our basic paints and everything. And we'll flip it around so they show us a built-up one on here, and we've got the, I guess this is a officially licensed type of thing with Lockheed Martin on there. And so we've got nice little packaging, and then here's our decals we'll be getting and our specifications of the original. This is actually really nice to have. I kind of like that on some other kits. If they would put the original specifications of the real thing on there, would be kind of neat. But anyways, we'll open it now, actually see what we get here. We've got a nice, like I would say magazine type of paper here, and we've got our kit in there. So we'll look at the instructions first. So it's on that nice like gloss type paper. We've got more history here, like a extended history, which is really nice. Of course, this was like a prototype aircraft, so it's actually nice to have all that information and everything. I actually really like this helicopter, like the real life version, which is kind of interesting about the whole project. And then we've got basically the vintage instructions, which is something I miss a lot on new kits. I know the way new kits are compared to these old kits, because they were sort of like, not necessarily a propaganda thing, but they wanted to teach children and people who build these things, they wanted to teach them about the, say, car, the vehicle. They would tell you all the parts, and it's the same thing with their military kits. They used to do this where they've got all the parts. It tells you the cabin floor and the right pod intake, then the rotor shaft, and they tell you what every part actually is. You almost don't even need to have the numbers on it and everything, but the numbers are there. So you've got the vintage instructions, so you'll get the feel for it when you're actually building it. And then it's showing us here like some of the paint scheme there, and then obviously what we're going to look like on the bottom for our decals and everything. So it might be a little bit confusing with the decals and that. I would highly recommend looking up the real thing for the version you want to do, because I think there was 2 of them built. I didn't read I should have probably read the history on it before I did the video, but I think there was 2 built, and one of them actually cost the life of the crew, and I think that's why it was actually canceled, other than it was like, I think, massively over budgeted. But anyways, here's our built product. You can see it looks pretty nice on there. And then here's these other ones, like you've got the Neptune and the Ranger. I think the Ranger, I'm not sure if it shows on there. I think it is actually in 72nd scale, but like the Neptune are in these odd scales. But they do very interesting subjects. And for anyone who doesn't know this company that's re-releasing these old kits, some of these old kits are actually beautiful, and I would definitely give them a chance, especially for the price you can get these at. They're worth taking a chance on. Like, I would love to get that Neptune. Actually, it looks like a pretty decent aircraft and everything, even if it's off scale. Not everything has to be in the exact same scale. For me anyways. So we're gonna have a look at the kit here now, and I guess we'll look at the decals first, just briefly. I mean, there's nothing really too much. They're good modern decals. I'm not sure if if we know who actually prints them. I'm guessing Atlantis prints them themselves, but they're a gloss decal. Everything looks like, pretty nice, typical decals. So the colors are they're pretty good. You can see we've even got subdued and the blue for the stars. So actually they're pretty nice. And we'll put that away. And we'll have a look at the kit itself. Okay, so we are sealed in here. I'll get her open. Just bear with me, we'we'll dump it all out here, because that's one of the things these old kits is they tend to just, well, this isn't like a vintage kit, but the parts on the sprues and that, they always seem to come loose. So we'll start with the canopy. In the canopy, you can see we've got these old, like I guess they're injector pin marks right into the canopy, but the canopy glass is actually not bad. It's not insanely thick. I mean, this was probably armored glass anyways, but it's actually fairly clear for what it is, and considering it's such an old mold, it's actually not too bad. So anyway, so there are those injector pin markings. Unfortunately, they are on the inside, so they'll be a little bit difficult to get out. They are something to note though, which, I mean, to me, it's not that big a deal because of what this kit is. And I think we'll go into the sprues here, before we do the fuselage. So here's our rotor blades. You can see the heavy ejector pins on everything, which isn't too big a deal. We can get those out. The glass is a little bit more concerning. Here's our wheels, very basic. And our rear rotors there. You can see the details are a little bit soft on them, but the detail is there. Like, here's our landing gear. Again, you can see it's just a little bit soft, I mean, by modern standards. And here's our almost non-existent cockpit there, the instruments. And we'll have a look at our pilot and stuff. And the pilot's good. They usually do an okay job with the pilots on these old kits. I mean, you just paint him up, you're hardly going to see him anyways. And it looks like our panel lines are very heavy, which is, it's okay. You could, if you were a real stickler, you could fill those in and rescribe. It's not that big a deal. There's our various parts and pieces. And like I said, our instruments, there are very, very basic. They are there. How sophisticated it was in real life, I don't know. I don't know if there's many cockpit photos you can find of this thing, but yeah, here's our very thick panel lines. Everything could be sort of knocked back in that too. And our seat, very, very basic seat, but it actually, you can see it is a seat. Like, you wouldn't have to have him in there if you did belts and stuff. So it's not just like an L-shaped thing. And we won't have to go into the the other pilot. And well, I mean, we can show him because he's obviously working the stick or whatever. So, he's quite they're quite good for the era of this thing. And like I said, you're not going to see them anyways. Here's other detailed parts. This is this, I think, it goes over the rotor, like the rotor mast or whatever. And the floor of the cockpit, we've really got nothing in there, but again, more cleanup. And we'll actually look at the fuselage now. So you've got nothing at all inside I mean, it's to be expected. Here is our fuselage. Very heavy panel lines again. No bolt detail or anything. But you do have a fair amount of detail. Like, you'd have to look up the plans of this thing to see if these panel lines are actually accurate in the right proper place and everything. But it's not bad. And there's our tail wheel. Like, I'm not noticing anything really. You can see like all these sort of like little imperfections on there, which it's just because it's like the glossy kind of plastic it is, but it's not like, I don't see any major sink marks. Oh, there might be the tiniest little sink mark right there. Yeah, the sun, or I mean not the sun, but the light bounces off of it. You can see a tiny little sink mark, but it's barely noticeable. So like the mold has held up all these years. And here's the other side. And then our little, it might be the minigun, that's all that little turret. Yeah, I guess it is it's just a little minigun in there, but there's our sink mark again on this side. But everything looks pretty good. Yeah, other than the heavy panel lines, but if the panel lines are in the correct spot, that's fine. So, and now I wanted to go into the built one here, which somebody built. I usually don't keep other people's work because I've got so many of my own that I usually don't keep other people's stuff. But this was such a old, like, it was rare for a long time, and you know, it was hard to come by, and so I decided to keep somebody's like built work that I had found over the years. I think this was at a model store or something like that. And anyway, somebody hand brushed this, and I was just so impressed with it. I thought it was actually a really decent little kit once it builds up. And you can see this is a vintage build. This is not somebody who's done this recently. They left the pilots out of it and everything. And I'm kind of, I'm hoping, but I really doubt they will. And I think that this is where these aftermarket companies really should come in. When you get these older kits like this, especially now that they've been released or re-released, there's so many details on this thing. They could do a cockpit for this thing. They could also redo the wings, and we need weapons pylons and all that. You need it for this kit. You have no choice. But they always come out with, they'll have a brand new Tamiya kit that's $120, and they'll do like a whole cockpit and all these other things for it. And you're like, why? The original was perfect. Why did they have to do that? I understand they will sell, you know, people will buy them, but I wish they would do more aftermarket type stuff for this kind of thing. And I'm not talking about vintage aftermarket. I'm talking about current, like say Quinta. If they did the seats and the interior, you can see how much you can actually see in there. It would be perfect. And then we have Edouard. If they would do like the weapons pylons, would be perfect. And like, here's our minigun. We could use a replacement for that. And you know, it's just beautiful. Like, I think that this thing would be an excellent candidate for the aftermarket companies come out, because you've got the base here, and it looks, you know, in my opinion, it looks great. So anyways, we're going to you know, end the video here. You can see it's a pretty decent kit. The price this thing is at right now is, to me, is excellent. I mean, obviously I picked one up. So anyway, the Atlantis model Lockheed AH-56A Cheyenne helicopter, and looks pretty decent. And other than that, thank you for watching.